Welcome, everyone, to the latest edition of the Get Up and Go Show. I'm Anne Marie of the Art of Healing. And today I introduce to you a beautiful young woman who is a sound healer. She is a naturopath and definitely a woman who is on the goddess path. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Alexandra Radoaca. And welcome, Alexandra, to the Get Up and Go Show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming on. I first met you through our mutual friend, Melissa.
Yes.
And you are, among things, a sound healer. So first of all, before we go into that experience, tell us who you are, what you do, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I'm going to try and keep it as short as possible. But basically, I work with sound. I'm a sound practitioner, and I'm also an herbalist. And I kind of started doing both of those things about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I found sound because I was going through some health issues. And I kind of found herbs for the same reason. I was trying to look at different ways to create nourishment and health for myself and really create wholeness in my life. So I started going to sound baths and apprenticing with with an herbal teacher, and I really loved both of those practices. So I kind of started combining them and then doing them on my own and offering them to people, offering those benefits. So yeah,
That's really profound. I mean, the reason why I wanted you to be a part of this whole process show is because actually when I was at that very sound bath was the first time that I felt energy manipulating and moving and controlling my body, which it does all the time now. So I consider that experience a gateway. It was a gateway for energy to come through, and beyond that, then I began to channel. So it was quite a fascinating experience, to say the least. So
yeah, I remember that.
You remember that? Yeah, it was kind of freaky. I think it was kind of freaky for a lot of people, but I knew what was happening. So please tell me about this whole concept of sound healing, because it was such a profound point for me. Describe it to people and what it does and how it affects the body.
Yeah, sure. So I think, different people kind of explain this in different ways. The way that I try to explain it, that is probably the most the most accessible and tangible, is that it really creates, and I think I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but it creates that space within the body that allows us to open, that allows us to bring in our own healing, other modalities of healing. So in many ways, it's a meditation that works through grounding and vibration. But at the same time, it also really helps relax us and calm us down. It's like the relaxation response, our heart rate declines. Our immune system, is boosted by the vibration of the sound. But ultimately, it just creates the space of relaxation where we can receive whatever it is that we need. And whether we choose to work with a specific intention in that space, or to work with a different energies like Reiki, for example, or herbs, and bring that in. It's also a great foundation to really receive everything else. So that's kind of how I think about it. We work with different instruments. Not all of them are vibration based. What we're really looking for is those overtones. So all of the microtonalities that happen in the vibration of singing bowls, for example, or the shruti box, it's in those kind of places in between the notes where that vibration happens, and that's really where that healing, that the healing happens. Everything else is really just part of the journey.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you does vibration um pair up, like different tones pair up with different chakras, for example, or organs in the body? What do you?
Yeah, so this is a very complex world. So a lot of the knowledge that we have about sound is based on Indian classical music,
Mhm.
as well as sound traditions that have been around for thousands of years.
Right.
And there is a lot of associations between different notes and different chakras. And they definitely make bowls that are, tuned in different notes that correspond to different chakras. And we can definitely look at it that way.
Mhm.
So there's definitely, so like the C is very grounded, that's for the root chakra. And then we can kind of like go up from there. And it's kind of nice, that when you hear those tones, they really do feel like they correspond with those chakras, but ultimately it's much more complicated than that. So I tend not to like create a direct relationship between those two things. To me, it's really the way that I tend to work with it is if you're working with the specific, energy center in your body or with a specific organ, I tend to really help the person focus the vibration, the sound in that space. So that's kind of how I tend to work with it. But there's many, different ways. Yeah.
How do, I don't know how much research you have on this, but what cultures have used sound in the past? What do you know of?
Yes, so definitely, so a lot of the sound that we have here that has traveled here really comes from India,
Mhm.
as well as different places in the Middle East. I would say so, like the whole like Sufi aspect
Mhm.
of Islamic traditions, like the mystical aspect of religion that has traveled. That really kind of came to us mostly through the Assyrians a couple of thousand years ago. They were, big sound practitioners, and then also through the Greek musical system. So a lot of that, like the monochord, for example, that came from the Greeks. So a
Mhm.
lot of that has traveled, for like the past, for a few hundreds of years. Um, that's kind of like when we talk about mostly string instruments,
Mhm.
as well as things like bowls, for example. Those
Right,
come from those
right.
areas. Himalayan bowls are a little bit more recent. I think, a lot of the experts out there would really deny that like they were made by monks in monasteries because they just didn't have the technology to do it.
Mm.
There were mostly, bowls that people had in their homes and that were used both for playing and for meditation, also for, household items and to hold like
Oh,
things like fruit, for example.
right.
And then a lot of the wind instruments, a lot of those came from the South American traditions and from Native American traditions. So a lot of that, and also like all of the rattles and a little bit more of like that, like that, those like medicine type songs, like the Icaros, all
Mhm.
of those are very much like Native North American and South American. So, and then we kind of like, all blend it together
Yeah.
for different experiences. But yeah, that's kind of the short of it, I would say. Yeah.
The one instrument that I think really set me off set me off vibrationally. It looked almost like a tambourine, but it had, I don't know if it were metal beads inside that you just kind of, and it
Yes.
creates this, oh, amazing, just amazing wave sound.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're referring to the ocean drum.
Ocean drum. Huh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, it's a wave drum or an ocean drum.
Mhm.
So it's a drum that has, like you mentioned, all of these like little beads inside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome instrument. Beautiful.
I think in some ways these sounds also trigger really deep memories within us,
Absolutely.
and you know, take us on a journey. Because you know, we have olfactory memory.
Hmm.
I'm sure we have sound memory. We have memories of sounds that uh, journey with us, you know, journey with us in our oversoul, sounds that create different states of being,
Yeah.
really. And
Yeah.
I just find it so fascinating. The other thing that I find very fascinating about you is that you're always posting about going into the forest and harvesting pine needles. And talk to me about this part of your life and how did you learn how to be an herbalist?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'm so excited about that, about answering this question. So, just by way of my own personal background, a few years ago, I was very much, again, going through some health issues, very, deeply immersed and trusting the medical system.
Mm.
And this is not against the medical system. It was super helpful, and I had an amazing doctor, and she really, got me through what I was going through at the time. But it was really in the recovery process after the surgery that I had, as well as the emotional aspect of what I was going through, that I started to look for other ways to help. So a friend of mine introduced me to motherwort, and he said that, this plant in his yard told him that it's the herb that I needed. And um, I was very dismissive, and I was like, thank you, but like, I need to, like, I had a bout of I had a brush with cervical cancer. So I was like, it's not really what I need. Like, I just need this to go away.
Yeah.
Like, great, but it's not really what I need. And when I was kind of like in this very desperate state, of like going through all the nightmare scenarios in my head, I started taking this tincture. And I realized that I felt just, my heart was just so easy. It just totally eased up. And I realized that this, the tincture had given me wasn't really to cure me, but it was to help me deal with that emotional stress,
Okay.
with that confidence in my own ability to heal and take care of myself. So that really, it's one of those things that, like, when you feel something working and like you don't really need more proof. So it worked for me,
Mhm.
and it just opened this whole new world. And I started apprenticing with Susan Weed. I signed up for one of her like Green Goddess weeks, which was like a little bit traumatic. She's a difficult person, but an amazing teacher. Um, and from then it was just like this unlimited, abundant world that opened up, that is available to us everywhere, like in our backyard. Like, we don't have to work with like, some, sophisticated, inaccessible herb. Like, to me, it's the fact that everything that we need is right here for
Is
us.
in
So
the
I really, really love that.
the mother provides for her child.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, have you always been, I don't know, open, free spirit? Did you have any, where did you come from in your upbringing that that you knew a friend whose plant talked to him?
Yeah, like, honestly, total coincidence. Not coincidence, but you know what I mean by it's like total, universe.
Synchronicity.
Like, I grew up, so we immigrated from Romania
Okay.
through Canada, and I moved to the US when I was like 16. Um, my parents were software engineers, so it was a very like logical household.
Mhm.
And I went to school and I studied finance, and I went into finance. And even now I still part-time work in finance. So I came from this like very linear, like, you know, hierarchical, like male dominated world. And I was going through a pretty difficult relationship that really challenged this for me, where I was really starting to, you know, come into my own as a person. And I realized, like, I don't want, you know, the job, the house, the kids, the husband. Like, those are not things that I want. I need to figure something out.
The program that we're fed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It pushed me enough that I realized that, like, you know, I want to return to, like, which I think is something that we all go through. It's for, like, to that 16-year-old self that used to be, you know, reading like Wicca books and being into plants and reading about the goddess. And I was like, what happened? You know, like, how did I like lose this?
Right.
So I started coming back to all of those things. And I became a wilderness hiking guide. And I started, you know, doing more and more hiking. And so on one of the hikes, I met this person who was interviewing to be a guide for the same company. And he kind of just, like, you know, was one of those people that just like shifts your whole world and that really opens you up. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's terrific. Good for you. Do you have your mug with you today?
I do.
Oh,
I do.
please. I hope you have some fantastic tea in there and you're going to tell us how to make it.
Yes, I have in here, I have some oat straw infusion.
What is it now?
Oat straw.
Oat straw. Okay.
Yes. So the yeah, it is. So oat straw it's wild oats, right? It's oatmeal.
Okay.
So basically, so you can buy like the actual herb, the green tops, and it's a wonderful herb for the nervous system and also for heart health.
Okay.
So I drink it maybe once a week. I make like about a quart of it and I just drink it through the day. And it's just like I mean, basically, technically it's Monday today because yesterday I had off. So it's just a really nice way to start the week.
Oh, good.
Really eases you into it.
Do you ever sweeten anything? What kind of sweeteners do you use, if any?
Yeah, I mostly use honey. And then I also make infused honey. So you can pretty much take like anything that has an aroma. It's like rosemary, for example, sage, lilac flowers,
Right.
and you can just infuse them in honey. So sometimes I really just take like a spoonful out of those like infused jars and put those in hot water, and that's like that perfect sweetness and aroma mix.
How do you infuse it? You just put them together and let them go? I mean,
yeah, so you basically take a jar and you put in the material that you're wanting to infuse, kind of like pack it in enough that it's like you're not squashing it, but enough that it's like a nice, you know, like texture. And then you can add the honey and you can kind of poke around with a toothpick or a chopstick, just so that the honey, you know, gets in. And then you just store it for like maybe a week to 2 weeks, up to 6 weeks. You can keep it forever because honey is antibacterial.
right.
So yeah. And then you can just put in anything. It's really delicious. Yeah.
Wow. Talk to me about honey, because that's one of the things my father used to really, um, really encourage me to eat was honey. In fact, he used to just have spoons of honey all the time. That was like his favorite thing. Tell me about the properties of honey.
You know, I don't know much about honey.
Okay.
In terms of, you know, anything that's like more unusual. But the reason why, well, I love working with honey for multiple reasons. So first of all, it is antibacterial and it's very soothing to the throat as well as the lungs. It's a really, really amazing like heart opener. but I don't really know, much beyond that. It's so interesting, that question, because, normally I research everything,
Mhm.
but it's one of those things that I've just taken such a pleasure in that I have never gone to the books to really read about it.
Oh,
And I'm realizing that there are so many things that we learn about just through the pleasure of the experience.
right.
Um, but yeah, I don't really know much of the properties of it. I just really, really enjoy it.
That's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine. I just think that it's, if it weren't for all the herbs, if it weren't for all the plants, we wouldn't have the honey. You know,
exactly.
just so beautiful how uh, everything just fits together. And how nature is such a closed, complete system. And if
Yeah,
you knew how to use it properly, or and you know how to use it properly, and those of us who don't, we can learn much, much more about it. Do you have any classes that you teach? What is, if somebody wants to look for you and your information, where can they go?
yeah. So I founded a business called Mindful Wilderness. So
Ah,
that's my Instagram, and it's also my website, mindfulwilderness.com. And on there, under workshops, I have all the current workshops that I do, as well as the retreats that we're holding.
oh,
So my amazing partner, she's an incredible yoga teacher. So her name is Jody Epstein, and we do a lot of things together. And then my other friend, um, he has a company called Earth Living Skills, and he teaches primitive skills. So we kind of combine all of these worlds of sound, herbalism, yoga, and mind body practices, and then living with the earth through primitive skills.
oh,
So
wow.
it's a thread that goes through many different, I think, aspects of our living experience here, an energetic experience here.
I think anything that this whole quarantine has revealed to us is that we are so disconnected
Yes,
from the earth and what the earth can actually do. I went hiking myself this past weekend, and you see people hiking on the top of a mountain with masks on. Come on. I mean, I understand there's a program running in our culture. It's like a computer virus. It's running in our
yes,
culture, and people only know what they know. But to me, I need to pray. I need to pray for them to kind of open up and understand that earth, sky, air, sun is what the body needs. It's what the body desires, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that's happening right now is that we're losing so much trust,
Mm-hmm.
trust in ourselves, trust in, the system, all the systems, because, I mean, everything is part of a system, right? And part of this is that we have to relearn how to trust things.
Right.
And what we can really trust, it's what's right here, right? It's the outdoors. It's like you said, it's the sun, the earth, the
Mm-hmm.
air that we're breathing. So it's this very it's this very intimate, raw, challenge that we're having right now. Where it's if we don't trust the things that are, giving us birth, that are really supporting our lives, it's going to be very difficult for us to transform, and to really welcome transformation. So, I think, yeah, it gets to me that people are wearing masks on the mountains, and that people are not, trusting that they're going to be taken care of, that this is what we're all here for.
Right.
But I also think, it's part of their own personal transformation to even be on that mountain, because probably those people don't usually even go hiking.
Right.
So it's pretty amazing, right? That people are swarming into Harriman State Park right now. A part of me is too much, but another part of me is yes, that's
Right.
great.
Right. I mean, since all the local parks are being closed, they have no other option but to go into the bigger uh, state parks.
Yes.
You know, It is. It's quite a beautiful thing. It's a nice side effect. It's a wonderful side effect on all of this.
Yes.
Oh, great. That's so wonderful. I've had this is a really wonderful conversation. Thank you for spending time with me. You know, one thing we didn't do is we didn't talk about the mug itself, because that's an important part of my show, I have to say. So can you show us the beautiful mug? Yes. And tell us your story with it?
So, the interesting thing is, where this mug came from is actually TJ Maxx.
Yeah.
But the reason why I love this mug, I also love TJ Maxx a lot, is because when I moved up here, I kind of like saved for years to buy this house, and my dream was to have a place where I could be close to plants and have people here and teach classes and do all of these things. And this mug is the first thing that I bought when I moved here. And so I drink in it almost every single day, because it's kind of it just feels like I'm home. Like, this is what creates a home. It's like warm beverage, and a round mug. So it's awesome.
Cradle it beautifully.
Yes.
That's so lovely. And mine is also a TJ Maxx purchase.
Yes.
And I bought this to drive with my morning cup of coffee. And what's life without laughter? Tell me. So it's going to remind us to laugh. The last thing I wanted, this finally popped into my head. Living in North America in not so much wilderness, we're kind of in suburbia up here. Tell us one plant that we overlook, but that is so beneficial to us that we would never realize it.
Oh my, there's so many of them. I mean, the one that came to mind is dandelion, but I know that everybody is, a lot of people know already about dandelion, but I think, to me, it's like a healthy lawn is a lawn that is filled with dandelions, and it's one of those plants for like, every single part has a benefit.
Yeah.
Every single part is edible. You can make tinctures from the roots, wine from the blossoms, put the greens in your salad. I mean, it's just this one plant that is so abundant, and that we really take for granted. But it's just, yeah.
Did I see you with a jar filled with flowers? Was that dandelion, or was it? Oh no, it was another flower. It was, the first flower, the first bush of spring, the yellow one. What's that called?
The forsythia.
Yes. How do you use that? Because that's everywhere.
That is such a good point. So I have forsythia everywhere in my yard. And that is the right plant for that question. To answer that question, absolutely, because it's a plant that, most people try to get rid of. And I myself, if I haven't seen, I know that the birds love roosting in the forsythia, so I left it. But when I was like, I need to just like create some space. So I didn't touch it. And then when COVID happened, and I was doing, my research and reading from, much more experienced herbalists on the remedies that were used in China to counteract it, on the herbs that they have used here. Stephen Buhner is an amazing herbalist and just like all around, just incredible writer. He wrote an article about COVID, and in it he listed some of the plants and the parts of the plants that were very, very useful. And obviously all of them are, species that are invasive and that are from Asia. And forsythia is one of them. So forsythia fruits and flowers are actually very beneficial for our lungs and really keep our lung membranes lubricated. And also there's something very specific about this virus, to that it attaches to like some of the ACE2 receptors in our cilia. And forsythia also helps them to basically not attach to those receptors. So that's like, first grade science, but like I'm explaining it in really in not a great way. But so forsythia, I read that and I was like, she's blooming right now. Like, it's not the fruit, it's the flower, but I'm guessing that it could be very similar. So that's why I started working with it. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you, like, what would you suggest for those of us who want to start maybe gathering our own herbs, creating our own teas? Do you suggest like a dehydrator, or how do you work with that?
So there's a few ways. So I think the easiest way, and this is, this is like from Susan Weed, and it's how I got introduced to herbs, is to drink infusions. So
Mm-hmm.
to work with herbs that are nourishing, herbs that are more like food than medicine.
Okay.
And those are herbs that we can buy in bulk, that are very accessible, very affordable. And those herbs are oat straw, linden, nettle. Comfrey is one of them, but there's lots of controversy about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't usually talk about it. And also red
What's it?
clover.
I'm sorry.
Comfrey. Comfrey.
What is comfrey?
Comfrey leaf. Comfrey is a plant that has a ton of mucilage, and that is really, really great to heal like bones, muscle aches. It's a great, just like, lubricator for like the entire body, for the whole like mucous membrane. But it does have a poisonous alkaloid that is present mostly in the root. Um, the comfrey that you can buy and cultivate, you always usually buy it from the root, or you buy it the leaves, but it also says always external use only. And that's because they have bred it to have less of the alkaloid in the leaves. But it's like one of those things where, like with every herb, you have to make your own decision. The studies that they have made are like scientific studies where like they concentrate, that very part, isolate, concentrate the alkaloid, and give that to the test subjects, like multiple times a day. I mean, it's a very like extreme scenario. That it's likelihood of that happening, of any adverse effects from working with comfort on a weekly basis, I think are very low, but that's my personal opinion. But anyways, like, so those 5 herbs are really wonderful ways to start working with herbs. You can order them online. Frontier Co-op, Mountain Rose Herbs is really wonderful. And you just do like a quart-sized jar, an ounce worth of dried herb, pour boiling water, leave it to sit for 6 to 8 hours, and then you drink it through the day. And that's how you get your nourishment. I mean, it's like a power shake in the morning.
Wow.
But I would say, like, if people want to walk out in their backyard right now, they will most likely find chickweed growing, which they can put in their salads. You'll probably find some yarrow growing, which is like an all-around amazing medicinal herb. Probably still find some garlic mustard leaves that are not too bitter. The bottom ones are pretty delicious. Violet leaves are delicious also in salads, also in teas. So if you have, so like my backyard is covered in violets. So every day I just dry off a few more and more and more until I have enough to fill up a jar. I don't use a dehydrator. I always just like kind of air dry things. I also never wash anything. So you want to pick your herbs like in the middle of the day once the dew has dried. You don't really want to wash them unless you're like really worried about where you're picking them from. But I always tell people, and even when they bring their dogs, I'm like, this is a no poop zone. You only walk here barefoot. Like, I eat everything that grows here. So yeah, you can just dry them yourself. You can use like paper towels, or even like screens, like a mosquito screens, and suspend them. Yeah, just somewhere in a dark place with lots of airflow where it's not too hot.
That's it. All right. Well, wow, this has been really fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure, and I feel just so honored. And I mean, you're so special, and I really, really love being here. So thank you.
Well, likewise, likewise. Tell us where people can find you if they want to look for you.
Yeah, so Mindful Wilderness, again, is my website. I usually post everything on Instagram. I also have a newsletter that you can just email me to sign up for. It's not like it's more like of a personal newsletter, I would say, a personal email list. I like to keep things small and like really get to know the people who reach out. So you can reach out to me via Instagram or my website, Facebook. Doing 2 workshops in June. They're both virtual. One of them is herbs for anti-anxiety herbs for sleeplessness, as well as for anger, because they're all things I've been feeling for the past few months. So I feel like it was really good timing. And then the next class are adaptogens, which are a group of herbs that really help us adapt to stress. And also really regulate. So I think both of those classes are very, very timely for what's happening right now.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. And I guess that's it for today. And again, thank you, Alexandra, for joining me on the Get Up and Go show. Oh, wait a minute. Put the brakes on. What do you do to make yourself get up and go? I forgot to ask you that essential question.
That's a great question.
Jeepers.
So I usually, when I don't have, there's like the version of this where it's like having a cup of coffee in the morning, which I definitely do. But I really like to take a walk barefoot outside. Like even if it's cold out, just from my bed, just go outside even for 2 minutes barefoot, and it just opens up your world. Yes.
Yeah, you ground immediately and up goes your energy. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Okay, well now we can say goodbye.
Okay. Thank you so much. It was awesome.
And thanks to all my viewers. And I hope this inspires you to get up and go. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.